After a pneumonia diagnosis, Hillary Clinton cancels a trip to California scheduled for this week. Her staff had said she left a 9/11 ceremony early Sunday because she was, quote, overheated. These events likely to add fuel to accusations on both sides that both Donald Trump, who still declines to release his tax returns, and Clinton are not running transparent campaigns, among other complaints about the two candidates that have many voters frustrated. A new book, Electile Dysfunction, A Guide for Unaroused Voters, is the latest book by Alan Dershowitz, the renowned civil liberties lawyer and Felix Frankfurter Professor of Law Emeritus at Harvard. He joins us now to discuss. Welcome, Alan. So great to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant title. I just want to ask you, did you come up with that yourself?
Well, you know, when you get to be my age, it's hard to be aroused by political candidates. You expect more of them. I did come up with it by myself. And, you know, it's amazing with ebooks. I wrote this book in 3 weeks, and it was out 2 weeks later. So you can really write very currently with the new ebooks.
And speaking of currently, what do you make of this current misstep by Hillary Clinton's staff?
There have been so many missteps on both sides. That's why the voters are so frustrated. Look, she never should have gone to that event if she wasn't feeling well, if she had pneumonia. We're entitled as voters to know everything about the candidates. Every one of their tax returns, all of their medical records. We should insist on complete transparency. We're electing the leader of the world for 4 or 8 years. We're nominating the next 4 or 5 justices to the Supreme Court. There's rarely been a more important election. We have to know everything.
And yet, recently, there's been so much mudslinging on both sides. Hillary Clinton made that famous gaffe. Of course, we know Donald Trump has made so many recent gaffes. Have they just turned off voters? Is it irrevocable at this point?
I think it may be. In my book, I document how few voters are supporting candidates. The vast majority of voters in this election are voting against the candidate. Some will stay home. Nobody can predict what voter turnout's going to be. It's a lot like Brexit in England, where the polls got it all wrong.
Right. So there's so much that's unpredictable this election cycle. You bring up the point that populism is a huge force right now, both domestically and internationally, and you link populism to the rise of both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Now, do you think that this movement is hurting Hillary Clinton as a female candidate?
It does. I think to be a populist, you have to be a man. Women are expected to be, quote, ladylike. Men, boys will be boys. If you look at all the populist candidates throughout American history who have been successful, they've all been men. The same thing is true in Europe. So I think populism puts a woman at a disadvantage.
So this would be a difficult thing for her to navigate. Now, you also make the point that populism brings both good and bad effects. But if I read you correctly, it seems to me that you fall on the side of there are more bad things that come out of a huge populism.
It's much more dangerous. Populism leads to extremism, communism, fascism. Almost every bad tyrant has been a populist. So
are you a fan of the Electoral College system?
I am, and that's what our founding fathers bestowed us, and that's what we should be using instead of these direct elections, plebiscites, the kinds of things that have conceivably can destroy Europe.
And Alan, you have a list of key questions that you think every voter should pose to both candidates. We can't go through all of them. You have to read the book for all of them. But let's go through a few, starting with what a lot of voters care about, the domestic economy.
Look, you have to make your own checklist, and you have to go through it. I'm a law professor. For 50 years, I never told students what to think. I taught them how to think. The same thing with this book about elections. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm telling you what to think about. And the domestic economy needs stability. Look at what's going on with the markets. They're being roiled. We need stability. The reason I am for Hillary Clinton is because she is a stabilizing force in the world. With extremism growing in Eastern Europe, with extremism growing in the British Labour Party, with extremism in this country, we need stability. We need a centrist. We need predictability. And I think that's the main focus of this election.
Okay, but another key question, of course, is also foreign policy. Where do both candidates, do you feel, fall there? And also, how important do you think the question of Israel will be to those undecided Jewish voters?
Well, I think it will be very important. I think, fortunately, as usual, both major candidates are supportive of Israel. That isn't true of Jill Stein. It isn't true of Bernie Sanders. But it's true of both presidential candidates. Israel remains a bipartisan issue. Reasonable people could disagree about who will be better. The most important issue is who's going to be better for the world, who's going to be better for America. Israel is often the canary in the mine, but I'm comfortable on Israel compatible with both candidates.
And finally, when it comes to your particular area of expertise, civil liberties, who is the candidate that's stronger?
Neither one fits my perfect solution, but I think Hillary Clinton will appoint justices to the Supreme Court who will be more centrist, more balanced. We've been told already by Donald Trump that he'll appoint 9 Scalias. I loved Scalia. He was a good friend of mine. Even he wouldn't have wanted 9 Scalias on the Supreme Court.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alan Dershowitz, for that. It was fascinating speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.